Intro to Human Anatomy and Physiology, and we'll start off with the definitions of those things. So, big difference between anatomy and physiology is anatomy is simply the structure of the body parts. Where are they? What do they look like? Physiology is then the function. What do those parts do? So, for instance, a common muscle that we're probably familiar with is the bicep, that upper arm front muscle. People that have big ones, it forms it's nice round. The anatomy is that, the shape of that muscle. The physiology would be what does that muscle do? And what it does is when it flexes, it pulls the lower arm forward. That's its physiology. You can look at this picture here. It's supposed to represent like when they started learning about this. It was kind of hard because they didn't let people study dead bodies for a long time in human history, which limited how expertise you could develop in anatomy and physiology back in the day. All right, so we're going to start off with levels of organization. All living things follow this same level of organization. And you notice we start here with the smallest, and that's an atom. We combine atoms together to make molecules, molecules to make cells, cells to tissues, tissues to organs, organ systems to organisms. We'll spend a little time on each of those in the next few slides, though. So, an atom is simply the building block of matter, meaning it's the smallest unit that still acts like that element. For instance, oxygen. The oxygen you're breathing in right now through the air has tons of oxygen molecules combined, and you're breathing in a bunch. But if you were to separate them down to one single atom, it would still have the same properties as all of the rest of the oxygen that you breathe in. When you have atoms held together by bonds, then you have molecules. So in this picture, we see a water molecule. It has a big molecule here, oxygen atom, combined with two hydrogen atoms. These three atoms, two different elements, hydrogen and oxygen, combine to make a molecule. Molecules working together, combined in certain ways, make up cells. And cells are the basic unit of living organisms. This is really where we're starting. For just the other two slides will let you know what cells are made of, but cells are the most basic unit of living organisms. Some cells, or some organisms, are just one cell. Some are many, like yourself, you're trillions of cells, but cells are the basic unit. When you have cells that work together to form a specific function, that is called a tissue. We're going to learn a lot about a lot of different tissues here. There's bone tissue. Well, that's cells working together to do the function of bone tissues, provide support and transport. You see here, this blue picture is adipose. That's fatty tissue. And yeah, you don't want too much of it, but fat serves a purpose too. If you had 0% fat, you would not be able to survive. So again, all of these different tissue types are different cells working together to perform a certain job. Well, if you have different tissues working together to perform more complex activities, then you have what we call organs. So the stomach is an organ, your skin is an organ, and it's made of different types of cells different types of cells working together as tissues, and then those different tissues working together to perform the job of, for instance, a stomach are organs. When your organs are working together, different organs working together, you have an organ system. And we're going to try to get through all of these this year. You can pause it here if you want to look through those, but the way this picture works is you can see the different organs working together to form these organ systems. So I'll just pick one at random here. The respiratory system. What organs are involved there? Well, we could see the trachea, we could see the lungs, so multiple organs working together for that respiratory system. And then all of your organ systems working together form an organism. So anything that possesses all of the characteristics of life would be considered an organism. So go ahead and pause here while you fill in the first part of your notes. So at the last page we said that the organism was anything that performs all the functions of life. Well, here are the functions, characteristics of human life. We already mentioned organization, that we go from cells to tissues to organs and so forth. Number 2 up there is metabolism. All your reactions in the body. It needs energy. We'll talk about that one on a separate slide. Responsiveness, number 3. You have the ability to sense change and react to them. Sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's not. For instance, when it's hot out, your body responds by sensing that and sweating, providing sweat to cool you down. Movement, a change in position, motion of internal parts. In other words, you're transporting oxygen throughout your body, blood cells throughout your body. Growth, humans are able to increase their body size throughout their life. Reproduction, not every individual has to do it, but humans are capable of passing on their DNA to make new individuals. And then development would be changes in the body. How do we change? Not just getting bigger, but changes within the body, and we'll talk about that one separately because of something called differentiation. So pause while you go over all 7 of those in your notes. All right, so we just had mentioned differentiation but didn't define it because I knew a slide was coming up to give you some specifics on it. And differentiation kind of means what it sounds like. The word different, well, this is the process by which cells become specialized to perform a specific function. In other words, you have a generic cell that becomes differentiated to be a blood cell, so it becomes a different type of cell that is specialized to do, well, depending if it's red or white blood cell, specialized to perform a specific function. Well, how do we do that? How do we take a cell that doesn't have any of these jobs that are listed here and basically, quote unquote, teach it? Well, it's by activating and deactivating certain genes. Every cell up here has the same DNA in it, but each of them has different parts of that DNA turned on and off so that they act as either a blood cell or surface skin cell or bone cell or whatever other cells you see up here. Homeostasis is a huge word. We'll mention it throughout the year, in fact. And homeostasis means tendency of a body to maintain a stable, balanced internal environment. Basically, you want to keep things as close to the same as possible inside of your body. The most common example that everyone's familiar with is the healthy temperature. If you're not sick, you don't have a fever, you don't have the flu, is 98.6 for humans. Your body works really hard to maintain that. And the reason being is that's the optimal temperature for your body's reactions to occur. If you get too hot, that's not a good thing. If you get too cold, that's not a good thing. So it does take energy to maintain homeostasis. And where do you get that energy from? Well, 2 main places, we'll talk about some others as well, would be food and oxygen. Metabolism would be all the chemical changes that occur in the body to maintain life. Ultimately, all of these require energy. So metabolism, these reactions are used to help maintain homeostasis. Things like cellular respiration, you might remember from biology. We already said we get energy from food and oxygen. So go ahead and pause while you fill out those definitions in your notes. All right, so what do humans need to live? Well, here are the 4 big categories we're going to talk about. We have oxygen. You need oxygen. The reason you need oxygen to breathe is it is used in the process of cellular respiration, which allows us to make ATP, and hopefully you remember from biology, ATP means energy. So you use oxygen in the process of breaking down food to make cellular energy in the form of ATP. Nutrients, things like water, food, vitamins, all these things are going to be also used in that process. Things we don't tend to think of, you need a temperature. Certain range, your body is best between that 97 and 99 degree range. We said 98.6 specifically, but any of these temperatures, 97 to 99, is plenty good enough for your body to work at perfect peak condition. And then a weird one here is atmospheric pressure. That just means the pressure of the atmosphere above us. Well, what's that got to do with anything? Go ahead, pause here. You can read this for yourself. I'm not going to go over this whole thing. But it's really interesting how pressure is necessary. And if pressure changes, for instance, if you were in outer space and you had a pressurized suit on and that had a hole in it, this explains what would happen, that change in pressure, and how it would kill you. So if you're interested, press pause and read that. It's worth the time for sure. Go ahead and pause and copy down that info for the requirements of human life. All right, last big topic today is homeostasis and feedback loops. I'm not going to show this and make the video too long. I think you should watch it. So if you Google search homeostasis and negative feedback loops by the Amoeba Sisters, you'll see this video that's roughly 6 minutes long. If you really want to, you could type in that link, but I'd recommend just Google searching Amoeba Sisters, homeostasis and feedback. So Feedback loops are how the body adjusts to the environment changing. So we said sometimes it gets hot outside or cold outside. How does your body adjust to keep things the same on the inside? Two words that are going to be important to this are normal range. That's the best range for the body to function. Again, for temperature, 97 to 99 degrees inside your body, not outside. And then the set point is the value around which that range fluctuates. So we're trying to, most instances, get to that set point, but there's some type of feedback that you'll get further and further from the set point. We'll go over here in a second. So feedback loops, again, they're meant to keep us near that optimal condition, maintain homeostasis, and there's two types, negative and positive feedback loops. Both are going to involve sensors, which are receptors, neurons, that are going to detect conditions within the body like temperature that we keep saying and send that information to the brain. So it senses it, receives it, sends it to the brain. We said the set point is that normal range that the environment is kind of controlled for, again, 97 to 99 for human temperature. And then this term down here, effectors, are muscles or sometimes endocrine glands that produce hormones that respond to the deviation from the set point. In other words, our inside temperature gets too hot or too cold, then the muscles or glands, the effectors, are going to respond to that change. And they might do something like sweating if your body's too hot, and that causes your body to cool down and hopefully get back to that set point, that range. Go ahead and pause while you put that. In feedback loops, we're kind of rushing through it today. If you watch the video, I think you'll be good. If not, tomorrow's assignment will probably be confusing to you for a while, so I recommend going and watching that video again. All right, so let's walk through this as an example with body temperature. Any generic negative feedback loop kind of operates the same way. There's a stimulus, something that your body recognizes with its sensor or receptors. Then it sends that information to the brain, the control center, which then sends a signal to your effectors, either muscles or glands, to change and react to that stimulus to get things back to our set point, that nice range. All right, let's look at the body temperature as a specific example of that. Body temperature exceeds 37 degrees Celsius, which is over 99 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's too hot. So your nerve cells in your skin and brain are your sensors that notice, we have a problem, it's too hot in here. They send that signal to the regulatory center in the brain, which is the control center, your brain, your nerves. And then that sends a signal out to your effectors. In this case, it's your sweat glands throughout the body, and tells them you need to sweat to bring that temperature down and get us back to the set point. That's negative feedback. The stimulus causes us to get back to the set point. Positive feedback loops. There aren't as many examples that we'll talk about this year, but a common one is going to deal with babies. We'll talk about that after we explain the difference. Positive feedback loops actually amplify or increase the occurrence of the event. So with the body temperature, we wanted a negative feedback loop. If it got too hot, we wanted to bring that temperature down. Positive feedback loops want to increase the stimulus, which kind of, especially with our temperature example, sounds confusing. So let's think of a baby. When a baby is eating, it's suckling a nipple to get milk. There's a nerve response that goes up to the brain, which causes the pituitary gland to produce more of a hormone to make more milk. In other words, the stimulus is the suckling of the nipple by the baby. That triggers a response from the brain to make more milk because we need to feed the baby. We don't want to constantly make more milk, so when we remove the stimulus, it's not going to keep on making more milk, but positive feedback loops wants to make more due to the stimulus. In this case, the baby drinking is that example. Go ahead and put this into your notes. And like I said, tomorrow we're going to do some work identifying and then figuring out more about how feedback loops work and the difference between positive and negative feedback loops. But for today, we are done.